Anti-Semitism really is a unique phenomenon, and it's been around for centuries. It goes all the way back to Bible times when it says that Esau hated Jacob with an eternal hatred. This has borne itself out now over thousands of years. We see it in the early church, where Christianity actually was not very nice to the Jewish people. We see it in some of the writings of the church fathers, and then of course later we see it in horrific things like the Spanish Inquisition and the Holocaust. Is anti-Semitism real today? Well, we are hearing more and more reports every single week about violent acts, about vandalism, about attitudes toward the Jewish people that are so terrible and just so horrific. And this is not just straight up racism. This is despising someone because of who they are, the nationality that they were born into. It has nothing to do with the color of their skin. They can be anyone with Jewish blood. I think this is a very, very concerning issue today. And we need to really ask ourselves this question: is history repeating itself? Did anti-Semitism really ever stop? But more than that, is this a trend that is concerning to us as we move into the future?
Anti-Semitism is unique in its universality, intensity, longevity, and irrationality. Anti-Semitism is still happening today and is often in the news. But what exactly is anti-Semitism, and what makes it so unique?
What's unique about anti-Semitism? I think we have to define what anti-Semitism is. If you're talking about plain, straightforward, old-fashioned Jew hatred, then we know what we're talking about. And Jew hatred is unique because it is specifically targeted against the Jews. It's something that's been around as long as they have. And it seems to be something that is always there, lurking in the background, never going away. So what is unique about it is it's long-lasting, it's focused, it's directed, and it's very successful.
So a brief history of anti-Semitism. Well, we have to appreciate that anti-Semitism, first of all, is a unique hatred in the world. The definition is prejudice or hostility towards Jews and Jews alone. The word was created by a German Jew hater, Wilhelm Marr, in 1879. He wrote a book called The Victory of Germandom Over Judaism. And the definition is prejudice or hostility towards Jews and Jews alone. And as such a hatred, it has unique aspects to it. It's the most universal, intense, longest irrational hatred on the planet Earth.
Anti-Semitism is alive and well in the world today. In fact, Jews are leaving Europe in record numbers because of the rise of anti-Semitic incidences. In 2018, France reported a 74% increase in the number of offenses against Jews, and in Germany, the rise of anti-Semitism attacks has surged more than 60%.
Anti-Semitism is alive and well, and if you look at the Anti-Defamation League, which monitors statistics on anti-Semitism, you see that the numbers are going through the roof, especially in places like Europe.
Why is anti-Semitism so prevalent today, and where does it come from?
I think anti-Semitism is so prevalent in the world today because it's really motivated by a demonic spirit. But the push for anti-Semitism doesn't come from one people. It doesn't come from one nation. It comes from a demonic spirit that has reared its head throughout the ages. If you look back at Egypt, trying to destroy the Jewish people, look at Herod trying to destroy the Jewish babies, or even Haman in the book of Esther. You can look to the times of Hitler and the Holocaust, the pogroms, the expulsion from Spain and England. This spirit of anti-Semitism is what's driving the hatred toward the Jewish people.
I think if you look at the scriptures and you see what God's purposes with the Jewish people are, God brought the Jewish people into being as part of His salvation plan for the whole of humankind. And so I think if you want to get to the heart of anti-Semitism or Jew hatred and why it is so virulent and where it comes from, you have to look at God's purposes in bringing the Jewish people into being, and that is to reveal Himself and His salvation plan to the world. And if the enemy can undermine that, then he can undermine God's salvation plan for the world.
There is a history of Jewish persecution, the most known being the Holocaust, which killed over 6 million men, women, and children, simply for the fact that they were born Jews. Is another attack against Jews possible today?
So in one generation during the Holocaust, from 1939 to 1945, one in three Jews was killed. Is that possible today? The answer is yes, absolutely. I mean, the Holocaust was unprecedented in terms of sheer number of Jews killed in a very small amount of time. I mean, the Nazi contribution to civilization was industrialized mass murder. But what form it could take, we don't know, God forbid, but it can certainly happen again.
Throughout history, they have had to fight for their survival, as over and over again they have been victimized.
I can show you anti-Semitism in the book of Genesis. It goes all the way back to the Jewish people. It has followed the Jewish people throughout history. That's the longevity of it. The universality of it is also unique in that it's not related to our relationship with one people, one country, one race, or one religion. Wherever the Jewish people have gone in history, in significant numbers, anti-Semitism has always followed. It's also the most intense hatred in human history. The dictionary definition of anti-Semitism is prejudice or hostility towards Jews, but it's a lot more than just a little low-level discrimination, keeping Jews out of a few country clubs and a few hospitals and colleges. It's one unendingly long list of persecution, expulsion, ghettoization, economic and physical marginalization, up to mass murder of the Jewish people, which is not unique to the Holocaust. Even the word genocide is a modern word. It was created by a man by the name of Dr. Raphael Lemkin in 1944, who was fleeing from Poland to England during the Holocaust. He said there's a crime happening in Europe, there's no word to describe, and he creates the word anti-Semitism. So we see it's the most intense hatred in the world, and the most interesting aspect of it, because these sort of rules apply everywhere, wherever we go, is the irrationality of it, which is the most interesting part of it. Because throughout history, Jews have been accused of any number of insane things. We kidnap Christian babies, use their blood to bake matzah, poison wells, we're in league with the devil, we control the world's economy, seismic activities, solar flares, we trigger tsunamis in Southeast Asia to drown Indonesia with tidal waves, release sharks into the Red Sea to destroy Egyptian tourism, send vultures to spy on Saudi Arabia, send wild pigs to destroy Palestinian crops and terrorize the population. 2 months ago, Iran accused Israel of stealing their clouds. So we have this, it seems no matter what we do, Professor Michael Curtis said it the best. He said anything and everything is a reason to hate the Jew. Whatever you hate, the Jew is that. And today in the world, anti-Semitism is basically hiding behind Israel bashing, but it always morphs into attacks on Jews. It starts with the images we see always. And by the way, the interesting aspect of modern anti-Semitism is the red-green alliance we're seeing, of an alliance of two groups that are normally antithetical to each other, which is radical Islam and the hard left, are coming together. The one issue that unites them is that they both think that Israel, and again it turns into anti-Semitism, they have something against us. So we see it as a very unusual hatred, and these rules apply wherever we look in history.
Jews have been facing persecution for thousands of years, but are they facing it today, in a world that focuses on inclusivity, tolerance, and acceptance?
Is it here today? Just look around you. We like to think that the Holocaust was a one-off, that it happened, a couple of generations ago. And as the final survivors of the Holocaust, which is the ultimate manifestation of Jew hatred in our age, in any age, if you like, as the final Holocaust survivors come to the end of their lives, that maybe we can have a society that's free of Jew hatred, but it's impossible. If you have a look around just in this last week, we see the president of France turning around and saying that anti-Semitism has got to unmanageable proportions in France. A Jewish intellectual can't walk past a crowd of demonstrating individuals without being spat on and told to get back to the ovens where he should go to. We see academics working in the United States, in universities in the United States, who are constantly trolled on social media with pictures of them with their heads in ovens. Anti-Semitism is here. It's getting worse. And we as Christians have a God-given responsibility to blow the trumpet over this thing, to call people to mind, Christians and non-Christians, and not to be silent.
A new wave of anti-Semitism is growing around the world, and Jews are beginning to feel the pressure. Where is anti-Semitism coming from, and why are we experiencing it again, only 70 years after the Holocaust?
I do think that there's a new wave of anti-Semitism. We are seeing the highest proportion of new immigrants to Jerusalem coming from France, for instance. Now, France has not been in history a place where a lot of immigration is happening from, but it is today. And that is because of the rise of anti-Semitism. There's been a great migration of Islam throughout Europe, and that's a dangerous thing if it goes unchecked. So certainly Europe is experiencing a new wave of anti-Semitism. I think sometimes in North America we're experiencing a new wave of anti-Semitism because it's being propelled through the education system. There's a rewriting of history. There's a rewriting of what we've known to be truth at our base and our foundation. So I think some of those, the migration of the Islamic world and the new education system eroding some of the fabric of what is truth in our education and history, has led to a new wave, if you will, of anti-Semitism.
As anti-Semitism continues to increase across Europe and the world, we are left with the question of what to do about this growing concern. But should we be concerned if we're not Jewish? The question posed is, why should we care?
Significant. Why should people care? Because generally what starts with the Jews never finishes with the Jews. The Jews are like the canary in the gold mine. And if we do not deal with this thing, when it affects the Jews, eventually it will come and gobble up everybody. All minorities, all special interest groups. And we can just imagine where that would go. But the second reason, why should we care as Christians? Because this is our heritage. We serve a Savior, a Lord who is a Jew. Jesus is a Jew, the apostles were all Jewish, the evangelists were all Jewish, all the writers of the scriptures were Jewish. And salvation comes from the Jews. And it is inherent upon us, it is incumbent upon us to fight against the scourge because we stand with Israel and the Jewish people. This is our privilege, but it's also our responsibility. And if we do not, we will be judged.
With the alarming increase of anti-Semitism, many Christians are left wondering what to do. It's a massive problem that seems impossible to solve. But history shows us that we cannot be silent. What is the role of Christians in the face of this present danger?
And I think one of the ways we can help that, help anti-Semitism, is first of all to call it out when we see it happening, to help in our social circles, helping local synagogues, helping local Messianic Jewish congregations. In my opinion, what a Christian can do from around the world is actually sow into the work here in Israel so that we can show the rest of the world that the Jewish people here in Israel, we don't hate others. We don't hate others in the world. We don't hate the Arabs and the Muslims. We want to live a peaceful life here. But that message gets overlooked and overshadowed by a soundbite level generation who is embracing propaganda that is not really the news. And so I think as Christians, we can help expose some of that propaganda, pray for the peace of Jerusalem, understand the realities of the demonic influence, and then partner along with the Jewish agencies and ministries here in Israel.
Anti-Semitism is a real threat in the world today. Jews in Europe are fearful to walk down the street wearing a kippah or stars of David's around their neck. Statistics show that anti-Semitism is on the rise again and reaching dangerous levels. In New York, a Jewish man was attacked on the street. In Europe, synagogues, Jewish graves, and Holocaust memorials are often vandalized and desecrated. Anti-Semitic incidents like these are happening more frequently across the world. As Christians, we are called to speak up for the Jews and do our part in stopping this from happening. We need to remember that Jesus was a Jew, and Christianity has deep Hebraic roots.
I think it's clear that anti-Semitism really is a real problem in our world today. And as believers in Jesus, we need to understand something. Someone said that if we believe in Jesus as our Messiah, then we have to love the Jewish people, because how we feel about the Jewish people directly impacts how we feel about Yeshua as Messiah. We have to understand the Hebraic roots of our Christian faith and know that to truly be a follower of Jesus, to truly love one another as He has loved us, we have to extend that to every people, but especially to the Jewish people. I want to challenge you as someone who is a believer in Jesus as your Savior, someone who follows the ways of the Jewish rabbi from the New Testament. I want to challenge you to speak out against anti-Semitism wherever you see it. Challenge you to step up for someone who is being maligned as a Jew, because we want to be the people who are on the forefront of doing all that we can to stop anti-Semitism in its tracks. Let's not be the ones who are silent. Let's not be the ones who say nothing. Let's be the ones who speak up and who do all that we can to not allow history to continue repeating itself.